Before I went on my journey to make a documentary about volunteerism in Malawi, I expected to see a negative influence of volunteers on projects. I thought I would see unskilled volunteers taking away local jobs and celebrating a holiday at developing projects. I also expected to live in an extremely poor country that would not have internet or any normal supermarket, when in fact I could not be more wrong. The Western media contributed to the creation of an extremely poor image of Africa and a negative image of volunteers. It turned out to be all in my head. The Western media has made different statements about volunteerism, such as volunteering wherever it occurs risks creating unemployment. Children are not a tourist attraction. Volunteering work has become an industry. My name is Rose and I'm a 23-year-old student. I have been living in Malawi for the last 6 months to discover the truth behind volunteerism. I wanted to find out if Malawians agreed with this negative image of volunteerism. I tried to find critical opinions and solutions from Malawians about volunteers. I found out that the Malawian perception of volunteers differs completely from the Western perception. At the beginning of my journey, I often thought, how can this be happening? When I saw 5 house mothers having a break at a project where 50 children were running all over each other. Along the way, I started to understand it. How Europeans think Malawians should work at a daycare is different from how they think they should work. How Western people think volunteer work should be done in Malawi is different from how Malawians think it should be done. The Western lifestyle cannot just be applied to the Malawian way of living. We could never know how Malawians feel about volunteerism according to Western standards. Therefore, the documentary became a search on the influences of paradigms on intercultural cooperation. The moment I arrived in Malawi, I immediately discovered why it is called the warm heart of Africa. Everyone welcomed me with a big smile on their face and locals invited me to stay for dinner. Malawi is among the world's least developed countries and counts 17 million inhabitants. 75% lives below international poverty line, surviving on less than $1.2 a day. 10% suffers from HIV/AIDS. Infant mortality rates are high, which causes a life expectancy of only 50 years. Only 60% of the children go to school. The others work in agriculture. Malawi has a large diversity of beautiful landscapes. It is a green country with plateau, highlands, forests, mountains, and of course, the pride of the Malawians, Lake Malawi.
Malawi is called the warm heart of Africa because people here are very welcoming. What sometimes I call, it's a bit naive. Malawi is the only country can come in the world where, as a Western person or a foreigner, you come here, people open the door for you, you sleep on their bed, they sleep on the floor. That's how naive we are. That mentality reflects in how we do things sometimes. Don't get me wrong, it's great to be friendly, but what if the visitor is there to do harm? So if you want to begin to discover Africa, go to Malawi first. And then you begin to understand how Africa operates. Things here are dead slow, like really slow. They say there's no hurry in Africa. Malawi, no hurry.
Malawi counts hundreds of international aid organizations, and a good number of them place volunteers at developing projects in Malawi. I've been working at different crisis nurseries, primary schools, and daycares where international volunteers assist. I try to find out to which extent volunteers really have been effective. But during my research, I discovered a different challenge. The more I searched for critical responses from Malawians, the less I found them. Malawians did not criticize volunteers. Maybe because the culture in general does not invite people to be critical. Maybe because they think Western volunteers don't bring any harm since they are from a rich Western world. Or maybe because their priority is to get food on the table, instead of evaluating volunteers.
I'm Kathy Bowler, and I'm the director here for Children of Blessing Trust. I've lived here in Malawi for 20 years. I'm a physiotherapist and an occupational therapist by profession, and my heart is for the kids with disabilities. We offer programs for kids with disabilities that include rehabilitation services, but also preschool education, special education, nutrition rehabilitation, provision of specialized equipment, epilepsy management. Just our goal is to get the children to be as independent as they can. One of our preschool teacher, the head teacher, loves having volunteers because there's maybe she has 15 children in her class. They all have a disability. They all are doing preschool education. So if you have two people in the room, you can obviously give the children more attention than if there's only one. But also what she really loves about it is learning from the person coming in, new songs, new games, new activities, new ways to do an old thing, you know? But always having extra hands when you have a large group has been just encouraging for the staff, supportive for them. Like someone else can be there, they can, suggest something and they can take over, half of the size of the group.
They are interacting with you people, and as they chat with you, they learn English. These little children, they need more attention. Yes. And for us, because we also have other things to do, but as you come, you relieve us greatly because you spend time, you play with them, do games, this and that relieves us a lot. And the time you go, then we feel all that work is now back to us.
My name is Kibo. I am now the current country director for Children of the Nation in Malawi. Children of the Nation is a Christian organization or institution, and we keep children who are vulnerable.
Oh, Nancy is eating all the sweeties. Yum, 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 yum. Nancy is eating all the sweeties.
In Europe, as well as in the United States, critical voices are being heard from organizations that express major concerns on the qualification and background of a volunteer. It has been stated that volunteers should be more properly selected and prepared. But how do Malawians receiving volunteers perceive this? Do they agree that unqualified or unprepared volunteers create issues?
Good English, that's what is important, to be honest with you. The rest really not much. You have to learn on the ground. Not much preparation is needed. Just understanding what they like. First of all, you study the day. What have they done during the day? Where can we fit in? That's it. Yeah.
One of the biggest hospitals. What do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a soldier.
Children of Blessing has now a child protection policy that we have introduced, and so we need to make sure that people coming to volunteer with us are safe for our children. That's got to be our priority. Anyone that wants to come, there's an application process. They come with their CV, they come with references, and so it's not just that somebody might show up in Area 25 and say, hey, I'd like to volunteer. But by and large, we find that people who have the heart to volunteer, they're already that kind of person that you want. You're not giving them anything in return. They're just coming and sharing. My staff, they don't feel comfortable to tell this visitor what to do. So, but if that visitor is saying, okay, here I am, what would you like me to do? Right away, they're going to give you something to do. And that'll foster the relationship and will set them on the right path. If they just sit there and wait for someone to tell them what to do and no one tells them, then they're just wasting everybody's time.
It is an organization whereby we do take care of orphans and vulnerable children. They have to be free to point something which is not good.
But is it the same for you as well? Are you also free to point at the volunteer?
Yeah. Sometimes I do. We do.
What do you say? Can you give an example?
When they are trying to to pronounce the Chichewa language, say Ndikupata. So no, we don't say Ndikupata. We do it Ndikupita, which means I'm going. So sometimes I do, or we do advise them to say the words correctly that they used to say.
Do you also advise them on how to interact with the children or on how to teach?
Mainly for the volunteers from Netherlands. I can't say I do advise them in that way because they also have the capacity, or they are professionals to speak, to collaborate with children, so they never make a mistake for the children, to the children, to the staff.
But are they professionals? All the volunteers that came here, do they need a certain diploma or certificate?
As far as they are here, they are qualified to be here. They don't need a diploma, degree, or whatsoever.
There has been criticism that volunteers act like Santa Claus by giving clothes and other material to local people. According to the critics, this results in making the local communities depending on volunteers.
But it's the way the giving is done that makes you dependent, I think. So in our regard, Children of Blessing does not allow volunteers to go out into the community and be Santa Claus and give stuff out. When someone is giving to Children of Blessing, they're giving into our office. And then when those things are in turn used by the people, they see it as Children of Blessing giving us access to these things rather than some strange person from a faraway land.
The Western media claims that volunteers cause attachment problems with children. They work at a project, bond with traumatized children, and leave after a short period of time, causing the children feeling abandoned. But what do the locals think? What is their vision on attachment issues?
For a volunteer, I think they won't manage much. I mean, it's okay. I don't think it can be bad. It's up to now a volunteer not to care for only one child much more than the rest. That becomes bad, but take them equally. Of course, sometimes you love one person, but not overdoing it. Yeah.
They know, though, when a volunteer comes, that they're usually only here for a short time, and they get so much positive things from that. They get a lot of love and hugs and smiles. It makes them more welcoming of another volunteer coming later because they've had a good experience with one before.
My name is Donald Chirambo, a dad. Chief Children's Home is under Children of the Nation that looks after vulnerable children. So they know, and this is you are here temporarily.
Yes.
And after bonding with them, I think it would be better for you to keep in touch with them. If you go and you go for good, not without getting in touch with them, yeah, they feel it here. Say, that uncle, we really loved him. He was such a good uncle, but since he left, then we can't hear from him again. What is happening?
What are the difficulties you notice with volunteers?
The difficulties, it's challenges the weather of this country.
The weather.
Weather, yeah. When they are coming from abroad, the climate changes. So they come here sweating every day, feel them hot and sometimes be tired. So it's like a challenge to them that they met with a hot condition in Africa, particularly in Malawi. So it's like a challenge to them.
But that's like weather condition. Are also challenges in terms of teaching or in taking care of the children, interacting with the kids?
Yeah, it's a challenge because when we are in class, the class is a little bit short. So when they are in class and there is a hottest day, the iron sheets also make the condition to be hotter. So they do sweat, sometimes getting outside to receive the fresh air for themselves. So it's like a challenge.
The Malawian culture is not one where people give direct feedback. I found it difficult to get honest answers on critical issues. I realized that the way Westerns judge volunteerism is completely different than how Malawians perceive volunteerism. Malawians did not seem to encounter all the issues Westerners have. I saw a video of Kofi that explained the matter of paradigms. He stated that we look at the world as we are, and not as it is. This means that we already have a preset mental image of the way things are. What we see determines what we do and what we get. It made me realize that I had a very strong paradigm about volunteerism in Africa prior to my arrival. I am sure that this applies to many volunteers as well.
They come with shabby clothes thinking we are shabby. They come here, they find this vice versa. We are well dressed and whatever. So tell them that, yeah, it's just like there's globalization element in this world where dressing is just equally the same. We use cell phones. It's more or less the same, only that we differ in the way we do things.
Remember what the media has done. For a couple of years, I think the media has been very good at painting Africa as a failing continent, where you see all these pictures of suffering kids, and they make one poverty campaign about Somalia and Ethiopia, and let's raise the money, and then on the opposite, from the Western world, all you see are big cities. You see big cities, you see soaps, you see life on TV, and that is not even real.
The West has a strong opinion about how volunteerism should be done according to our paradigm. But what about the vision of the local communities? They have a whole different perception. They see volunteering work different. They have different standards. They look differently at the Western world.
You go in the villages, they'll say Azungu, Azungu, meaning white people. You don't need to be offended. It's okay. They like it to see a white person. To them, it's a privilege to see one. But you have found other people getting so offended, really offended. Why are they calling me white? Why are they doing this? Sometimes they want to touch your hair. Don't get offended. They love it. Yeah. So we want people who can understand us in that way.
A feeling is just in us. Say, oh, see, it's Azungu. So the Azungu is like the app. That someone of my complexion is here. So to them, they feel greatly honored. Say, if you say we are playing with an Azungu, they feel greatly honored. Say, who are we that this someone can come all the way from Netherlands just to spend time with us?
volunteers are here, they're here for sharing money for everyone. So maybe in their way coming to this place, people can ask them to give money or something, because many Africans, they think that the white, they are most rich people in the world. So when they see white, they say, oh, there's money there.
There are not many schools where you can have a white teaching there or playing with the children. And to them, just to say, go to their children, go back, tell their parents, at our school, we are being taught by a white. To them say, oh, that means it should be a very great school.
The perception of Malawians about the Western world may seem irrelevant for the work of volunteers. But how they perceive us reflects how they treat us. Malawians apparently see us as well-educated, rich people and judge themselves below us. Therefore, they might think that we do not bring any harm. Maybe that is why they do not criticize us. To which extent can volunteering work be effective if the receiving party does not express what they really need and if they do not give substantive feedback? It felt like I was stuck and that I could not find the answers I was looking for. I wondered if the cause for this different perception is because the Malawian education system is different, where they do not learn to think critically, or because they are at the bottom of the pyramid of Maslow and do not bother about anything else than surviving. When Westerners are busy with matters such as how can volunteers' work be more efficient, Malawians think about how to get food for today. Westerners have the habit to approach things with the long term in mind. Malawians live far more by the day. So how to find an objective way to measure the effectiveness of working with volunteers? How do we know that what we do is right for them, according to their needs?
Let's look at the board. Red, good. Left, good. Pink, good. Pass, good. Jump. Clap hands for Rachel.
By coincidence, I met the director of Citizens for Justice, a company that promotes equality and improves access to justice for Malawians. I hoped that he could explain me more about why Malawians do not speak critically about people from the West.
When they see Mzungu, they see the Mzungu's got everything. The Mzungu's got money, the Mzungu's got skills, the Mzungu is fine. But it's not true. Mzungu and me are all the same. I have got problems, I've got money, I've got experiences, I've got skills. There are some values from the Western world that when you adopt here are great values. There are some values from the Western world that when adopted here are totally wrong values that can be accepted in our society. It becomes a culture clash between our values and the Western values. My speculation is that one is that they don't think volunteers don't have anything negative, that they think volunteers bring everything positive. Two is that maybe they don't want to alienate the volunteers, so they think that they speak anything negative about volunteers, the volunteers won't come back. So they want to sugarcoat things. Three is that maybe it's a culture of respect. Some Malawians don't speak about the negatives, so that have been because under the dictatorship of Kamuzubanda, former dictator, Kamuzubanda put Malawians in a cocoon. And for us, authority is anything that has got more power than us. Authority is somebody who hires us, gives us money or gives us support. For us, that's authority. A volunteer that comes into Malawi has some authority over Malawians. So those Malawians don't want to challenge that authority that gives them the money and the support to do their work. Lastly, maybe they think that these volunteers are not here to stay. So whether I say a good thing or bad thing, nothing's going to change. They'll go back anyway.
I finally found someone who could give me a critical response on the fact why Malawians have such a different perception. I wondered if he saw any risk in volunteers visiting his country to help.
Malawi is an independent country. It's a sovereign state. I think we can do everything and anything in this country that we want to do. But the challenge is that there's an inferiority complex, so people believe that they're not good enough to do things themselves. So they want someone to come and give them the support to do something. When you come from the Netherlands, you come into Africa, let me say Malawi, you come into Malawi, you understand that people here are extremely poor. people are poor because of corruption. So when you go back to the Netherlands, you know that in Africa, in Malawi, they've got challenges of education. They don't have enough good schools, they don't have enough hospitals. So in the event that you grow up in the future as a public official in your country, you've got a grounded experience about Malawi, and you know what kind of policy you can develop for the Netherlands to help Malawi. A lot of people that have not traveled from the Western world are in a box. They don't understand the world properly, and then you find them being caught up in misunderstandings around development aid, and they influence wrong decisions around how Western governments can support a country like Malawi and other African countries. Some people believe that continents like Africa or a country like Malawi have got no hope. There is hope if things turn around, if the mindset is changed.
I have realized that the problem does not lie in the fact what kind of issues volunteers create, but in the way Western people look at Africa and how Africans look at the Western world. It is impossible to know how Malawians think about volunteerism according to Western standards. Malawians perceive us differently. Their culture is not one that gives direct and straight feedback. This makes it more difficult for volunteers and aid organizations to know how to create a positive impact. So how can volunteerism be more effective? I have been in Malawi for 6 months and I've seen many positive and negative experiences. I saw that it is very important to have a good mentor who knows the Malawian culture and the Western culture well, who can guide the volunteers in their work according to the necessities of Malawians. Someone who can guide locals on how to cooperate with volunteers. Someone Malawians feel at ease with and trust to tell their worries. Reputable volunteer organizations with proper guidance in the developed countries could help with these issues.
I would encourage volunteers to go, learn things, share skills, share experiences. Because the spirit of volunteerism is the spirit of giving. These are people that are very kind. They want to give. To volunteer is not just about learning something. You can learn something in very many ways. You can go on Google, find the stuff. But when you go out, you leave your own family, you leave your own country, you go to volunteer, you want to give. So that's goodwill. We should encourage goodwill to go give. Yeah? People that receive should receive graciously about it, with a warm heart. And in the process of giving and receiving, we are sharing lessons, we are sharing experiences, we enrich our lives, we become better global citizens. So let's all go out there, be global citizens of this world. That's the only way we're going to make this place a better place.